Thank you to the Berta family for such beautiful, special music. It's a privilege to be with you this Sabbath. For those that don't know me, my name is Marybel Orellana, and I'm the school teacher here at Lubbock Junior Academy. And this is something I don't do it often, is speak in public. So I speak a lot in my classroom, but not in public. So it's really good to be here this Sabbath. We haven't been here because my husband Jose is considered high risk, so we've been staying at home because of that. But it's good to be here, and also it's good today. My husband and I are celebrating 11 years of marriage, so we're very thankful for that as well. No, it's been a hard week with the loss of our dear brother Teddy Tubbs, and yesterday I also found out that one of our dear long church friends from Arlington passed away as well from the coronavirus. He struggled through it, and he was having a hard time because just a month and a half ago he had lost his wife from cancer, so a special prayer for them. Well, today what I'm going to speak to you about is my experience with Christian education. I've shared some of my experience with, especially when I interviewed for this position, which is going to be almost 3 years ago, actually 3 years ago that I interviewed. And I'm going to share my experience both as a student and also as a teacher now. Adventist education has been a very important part of my life. But for the first part of my life, from kindergarten through 7th grade, I attended public school. We were in Dallas first, and my parents weren't aware that there was an Adventist school nearby, so they didn't place us in an Adventist school. Later on, we moved to Laredo, Texas, when I was in 2nd grade, so we could be close to my dad's parents, my grandparents. And there was no Adventist school there. So we were there in the public school. Now, there were very little Adventists in Laredo at that time. Now it's grown. There's a larger Adventist population, and they actually have an Adventist school there now. It's been there for 3 years now. And so I was very different, very odd than everybody else in the public school. I didn't eat meat. I didn't use bad words. I did not attend classes and dances or any activities that were on either Friday night or Saturday. And 1 year that I was there, I was selected to participate in a special trip to the state capitol, to Austin, to tour around there, and I was very excited. But then I found out that the tour was going to take place on Saturday. So I had to decline, and I couldn't attend. I was very discouraged. But then I also remembered that God has a promise for us. And I remembered Philippians 4:13. Many of you know that verse. And if you don't, if you could turn to Philippians 4:13. And it says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. So I told my teacher and my parents also that, I couldn't attend because it was on Sabbath. Of course, my parents understood. My teacher didn't really understand, but I knew that one day I had faith that one day I would have more opportunities that I would be able to participate in. Now, when I was in 7th grade, one Sabbath, a church member from Walla Walla, Washington came to our church, and he was just passing through. He was going to his country from Chile. And my parents had the habit of inviting, and whenever they saw a visitor, they would invite them over to our home for the Sabbath meal. So they did, and he showed slides about Walla Walla, Washington, about College Place and the college over there, which was Walla Walla College, which is now Walla Walla University. My sister had a desire to attend Walla Walla College. And she was a junior in high school at that time. She was going to be a junior in high school, and I was in 7th grade. And so when we saw it, we all got excited. And my parents said, we're going to pray about it. Maybe we can go and check it out. So he said, my family and I are going to be gone the whole summer. We're going to be in Chile, and you can stay at our house while you get settled for the whole summer. So my parents ended up, after much prayer with the family and everything, we decided to pack up. I remember we sold everything. My parents sold everything. We packed up, and during that time, we just took our 2 suitcases, each one of us, and we took the Greyhound and went all the way to College Place, Washington. So there we arrived. We went to their house, and they had arranged so that one of the church members could pick us up. My parents soon found a job there, and they decided that they were not only going to place my oldest sister at Walla Walla Valley Academy, but they were going to sacrifice and put my youngest sister, which would be going to 6th grade, and I was going to 8th grade in Milton State Line Adventist School in Oregon. So we worked hard. They worked hard in order for us to go to school there. Well, we really enjoyed it. It was a small Adventist town. We lived in College Place, Washington, and the bus would pick us up to go to Milton State Line. And that was my first time when I was introduced to 8th grade graduation, because I was an 8th grade graduate that time. Now, when we were there at the school, we noticed that things were different. Things were very different from public school. The kids seemed a lot nicer. It seemed a lot more innocent, because when I was in public school in Laredo, 2 of my friends there in 7th grade became pregnant. Many people were using drugs or selling drugs, and it was just not a very safe environment. And at this school, as this small Adventist school, students prayed. We had worship every morning. We prayed for each other, and there weren't really any verbal or physical fights among the students. Now, it was really nice that no one really questioned me about my odd habits, because we all had those odd habits, so it was very, very nice and very different. Now, due to my grandparents, we had to return to Texas, and my sister had changed her mind. Actually, now she wanted to attend Southwestern Adventist University, and she was going to go into her senior year. So we came back, and my parents told us, we promise that we are going to continue sending you. We're going to go to Dallas. We're not going to go to Laredo. We'll still be closer to your grandparents, and we're going to send you to an Adventist school. We will do anything within our power. And they did. They were minimum wage earners, but they worked 2-3 jobs to be able to make that tuition payment. And I asked my mom, when I was asking her this week, about how much did you pay for tuition back then? She said, I know that the lowest amount, that the least that we paid was $500 a month for the 3 of you. But there was always more than that. And that was a long time ago, so that was about the payment of a mortgage back then. So she said, I do remember that they would get also not offices, doctors' offices to clean and beauty colleges to clean back then, and we would go in during the nights to help them as well. So they really instilled that it was very important for us to work hard for our education. They also had to make other sacrifices, such as we never had cable, and up to this day, even though I can afford it, I feel it a waste of money to pay for cable. And they told us when we began, because when we were in public school, they would always buy us new clothes. And they said, once you go to church school, all we can afford is clothes from the thrift store. So we no longer new clothes. So that's what they did as well, and they did many other sacrifices, because for them the priority was to get that tuition paid on time. Now, we had many different opportunities that we never expected. But all 3 of us graduated from Burton Adventist Academy in Arlington, Texas. We were able to go to many mission trips to Mexico and even to Romania. I never thought that I would ever go to Europe, and I made it over there to a mission trip as well. We went to spiritual camps, to class trips, college days, week of prayers. We had many week of prayers, and I loved every time we had a week of prayer and we had a special guest coming in. And there were many more other Vesper activities going on. And up to this day, many of my friends there became family. They were not just classmates, but they became family, and up to this day, I have contact with many of my high school friends and my academy friends and my college friends as well. And we've been there for each other during good and bad times. After that, I wanted to attend Southwestern Adventist University. Back to my sister, she actually didn't attend Southwestern Adventist University. Right after high school, she got married, and then she attended college. But so this time, my mom said, at first I wanted to go to Anderson. She said, we're not moving. We've already moved for your sister. We're not moving for you. So wherever you decide, we're not moving. So I had everything ready for Andrews, but I had several people that talked to me and told me, well, it is very expensive, and you're going to be far from home. You won't be able to see it, and Southwestern is only 45 minutes away. So I decided to stay in Southwestern because I could have my parents just 45 minutes away anytime I needed them, or anytime I would get homesick. So I did, and I was very glad I did that. My parents told me, well, we really can't help you. We've already, they had a house actually that they had built back when we were little, and all of that house, the proceeds from the house, they had invested it in our education, in our Christian education, when we were in elementary and high school. So my mom said, all we can really afford to give you is $20 a month for your shampoo or things like that. The rest you'll have to come up with yourself. So I looked for scholarships, works, grants, and I did that. I was hired there at the Student Financial Services Office, and thank God I made it through. And I tell my husband, there was this lady that worked there in the financial aid office. I called her my angel because I was always lacking $1,000 or less than that in my tuition bill. And somehow, she always checked my bill. I didn't even tell her anything, but she always checked my bill, and she'd always deposit a special scholarship or something. So I always started with a zero balance at the beginning of a semester. During that time, I decided to go as a student missionary. I was going to go to Czech Republic, but at the end I ended up going to Mexico. And I ended up staying over there a year and a half. I was only for a year. I ended up staying a year and a half, and when I came back actually to live with my grandparents because they were having some health problems, to help them. And I finished through distance learning. So I didn't have that many hours left, and I had already done a year of teacher intern at Keene Adventist Elementary School in my junior year. So when I finished all my classworks in the spring, and I was working at a local bank there as an auditor, and also doing my classes, I contacted the local district, and I asked them if I could do my student teaching there in their local district. Well, they asked for my transcript and everything, and they're like, sure. But then they called me and said, well, we see that you've actually already completed all of your classwork, and you already have a year of experience in teacher intern. Would you consider becoming just a teacher? Because we could ask for a special permit from the state, give you an emergency teacher permit. It would give you 3 years to complete your degree and your certification test, and you would get paid as a teacher since you already have the experience. And I was really thankful to them. I said, sure. And so I turned in all the paperwork, and they spoke with the university and everything, so I became a teacher before I graduated. So I did that, and I was there for a year and a half. It was a public school. I was teaching pre-K 4-year-olds. And it was very interesting, and I had a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. And the only thing that I didn't really enjoy was the environment, because over there it's considered a party city, and most of the teachers, what they did would get together and would just drink and things like that. And I only went to one of their outings where they invited me, and I decided that was not an environment for me, so I never attended anymore. While I was there, the Arlington ISD, I had only been there teaching for a year and a half when Arlington ISD called me, and they wanted for me to be actually an early childhood specialist for an Even Start program, for a family literacy program. So that was a higher position, and They wanted for me to supervise teachers, and I had only been in the field for a year and a half. So I went for the interview. They ended up hiring me, so I came back to Arlington. At that time, I decided that I was going to go ahead and go back to school, and that I was going to pursue my master's degree. I did. I didn't go if I should do it at Southwestern. I ended up doing it at University of Texas at Arlington. It was a very good school, but at the end, I regretted my decision because they gave me such a hard time one of my last semester because one of the classes was being offered on Saturdays. And then after that, I asked them if there was any other class I could take. They gave me permission to take a class online in another field. I said, well, online, I'm not going to have any problems. But after that, the professor there decided that he wanted to have some online discussions, and they would be Friday night. So I spoke with him, and when and this was my last semester right before graduation, and he said, no, he said, if you are absent, you get a 0. I asked him, well, can I make it up with writing a paper or tell me what you want for me to do? He's like, no, if you're not going to attend, you just get a 0 and that's it. Well, I spoke with my pastor and a friend also that was an attorney, and we knew that was religious discrimination. So I contacted the Southwestern Union as well, and they helped me. And I contacted the University of Texas and told them, and it had everything in writing. And well, at the end, he had to make an exception because if not, they said they could sue us because this is religious discrimination. He gave me a very hard time because of that, because he had been there in the university for 25 years, and no one had ever given him such a hard time. But thank God, it was hard. My friend helped me, but I was able to complete with an A. I was able to finish the class with an A. Now, during this time, I did cry many times because it felt like that he was going to fail me and I was not going to get my master's degree. But I remember his promise in Jeremiah 29:11, and this is a very popular verse as well, which says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to give you hope and a future." And I knew that God was in control, that somehow He was going to make it through. And I really thank the Lord because while we were in the program, so many people had a hard time passing the state certification test, and I was already teacher certified, but I took my principal certification test, and out of the group of 20, only 2 people passed, and I was one of them. So I really thank the Lord for that. After that, I decided to apply for an assistant principal position. One thing that I did forget to tell you is that when my first time after I graduated, the Texas Conference did call me and offered me a position with a church school. And at the beginning, I said, well, I can teach in either church or public school. But once I saw what the difference in pay was, I was really, I didn't have faith that I was going to make it with the salary that I was being offered. And I often wonder what would have been if I would have accepted. I think I would have made it through, but I just didn't have faith enough in that I was going to make it through with that money. I decided after that after I completed my master's degree, to go ahead and interview for an assistant principal position. I did in most of the places that called me, Arlington called me. I only interviewed within the district, and I did receive quite a few interviews, and all of them were for junior high. And I did attend those interviews, and they were interested in me, but I would have to work Fridays and Saturdays because they had football games and different games, and I would have to be there to supervise. And well, I explained that I couldn't because of my religious beliefs, so they said they're sorry, but they couldn't hire me. And they also, I remember when they asked me, which I already knew, but it was a little tough. They asked me, well, there is many Seventh-day Adventists working as administrators in our district, and they do work Friday nights and Saturdays. Why is it that you're different? And I told them, well, that's actually a personal decision, and that's what I've understood from the Bible, and I'm not going to change my mind on that. I decide to be faithful to the Lord. And so I continued. I decided to stop pursuing that and just to stay in the classroom. After that, I did have a desire to go to the Adventist school. I said, well, even if the pay is lower, I know God's going to provide. And for some reason or for another, things did not work out. Either they didn't have the funding, or at the time I had purchased a house, and I was having a hard time selling the house. Now, my last year in public school, when I decided that was it, I needed to go and do, if it wasn't in the classroom, go do something different, was when my last year there, they decided at the school, it was new to this school district, and in the school district, they decided that they wanted to go ahead and said they celebrated the Day of the Deaf. And I told them, I questioned them, well, that's a Catholic tradition. That's why are we imposing this tradition here if we're supposed to have religion separate than here in the public school? Why is it okay for Catholics to impose their tradition, and why can't I say anything? And they said, well, they just ignored me and they didn't say anything. And one of the teachers there knew that I wasn't comfortable with it. So she said, well, why don't your class just do flowers and we'll take care of the rest? Well, that's what I did, but I still felt very uncomfortable about that. Then they also started telling us that we had to start teaching about the 5 families, which was mommy and daddy, mommy only, daddy only, 2 mommies or 2 daddies. I was like, wait a second, this is way beyond what I can do. And then they also started to tell me, well, next year you're going to have to teach evolution. I was like, no, God, I really need to get out of this. So I contacted one of my friends that still works at Southwestern Adventist University, to see if she knew of any church school positions. At the time, I didn't know that there was a website where you can go and look for church school positions. And she told me, well, I don't know of anything, but I do know that here, and my husband was there at Southwestern actually completing his degree, they need a loan counselor here in the Student Financial Services office, and you work there. They need a bilingual person. You already have 3 years of experience, and it would be the same boss that you had as a student, and why don't you interview? I'm sure they'll consider you. So I talked with my husband, and we prayed about it, and we said, well, let's go, and we decided, let's go ahead and pursue it. Well, I did pursue it, and they did hire me, but I did have to take a $20,000 pay cut for the year. So that's when that we really had to trust in the Lord. And so I was there. I was only going to be there for 2 or 3 years while my husband finished his degree. And at the end, we ended up staying for 6 years because I liked it there so much, but I still had the desire to work to go back to the classroom. We prayed about it, and we decided at that time we had found out about the website where you can find the teaching positions. And my husband and I prayed about it, and we decided, okay, we're going to go ahead and do that. I'm like, are you willing to move anywhere? He's like, yes, I am. So we looked in the website, and we saw the Texaco conference. And we saw that they needed a teacher in Abilene and Lubbock. So we decided to go ahead. It was a one-teacher school. I was like, well, it's going to be a lot of work, but I guess I could start with that. And then we also looked at the Chesapeake Conference, since my husband's family lives in that area. And that was for a 5th grade position. Well, Pastor Darrell Reeve was the first one to contact me. And a few days later, the Chesapeake Conference contacted me as well, that they wanted to interview me. We decided, well, it's closer to my family here in Lubbock, so we decided to go in that route. And my sister at the time was sick with cancer as well, so it was going to be easier to go back home. I was a little hesitant to come for those of you that were part of the interviewing process, you know that I canceled twice. But at the end, I did feel that God was calling us here. It was hard leaving the family behind because I had always been close to the family, especially since I lost my sister at that time, but I'm very thankful for the Lubbock Church that was there to help us. I'm really happy for the decision that I have made of coming here to Lubbock. And I'm very happy and really glad that the school is growing. Very happy that BIM now is here with being my co-worker. And we asked at this time, I just want to ask you to pray, to consider helping our school. If you have a child between the ages of kindergarten through 8th grade, consider sending them to our school. If you don't have a child, if your child is past that age, consider helping our school. Either I know many of you help through prayer, through donations, and if you can't even help a little bit more, so that our kids can go ahead and get the education. We are not perfect. We have many errors, just like everybody else. But thank God we have Jesus that died on the cross for us, and that God saves us by grace and not by our works. And but we are here to help your child get closer to God, to walk them in direction, not only academically, but to walk them in direction to the kingdom of God. Now, I know that God also needs teachers in the public school, and we thank, and my oldest sister is a public school counselor, and she helps them, and we also need Christian teachers there too. In Proverbs 22:6, it says, "Train a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not turn from it." Let's work together as a family. Let's help our school. Let's encourage each other. Yes, we maybe have many faults, but I would like for you to help us. Tomorrow we will have our 8th grade graduation. And if you are able to come, it's at 7 p.m., and I would like for you to come and support Alex. This is his last year. Unfortunately, he'll have to go to public school after this, but we've had him with us for 2 years, and we're really proud of him. And thank you very much, and I pray that we will all continue supporting our school.